So the idea that they're blaming Democrats is absurd, and no one believes it. If they want Democratic votes, then they need to make sure that health care premiums don't double for ordinary Americans. I mean, the reality is that the Affordable Care Act tax credits expire, and that's going to mean health care premiums for 24 million Americans literally double.
That was Congressman Khanna of California laying out clearly what's at stake during this ongoing Republican shutdown. Democrats want to reverse the cuts to healthcare, lower the costs, and save healthcare. We refuse to accept Republican inaction that's going to force millions of Americans to pay hundreds, if not thousands more for the same coverage. And while the days go by with Republicans refusing to do their job, Democrats are in Washington, ready to negotiate at any point to extend middle-class tax credits and keep healthcare affordable. Today, we're honored to have Congressman Khanna on the show to talk about the shutdown, our economic message as Democrats, and his work to finally release the full Epstein files. I'm Hannah Moldavan, Deputy Communications Director for the Democrats, and your host for today. This is the Democrats' Daily Blueprint. Congressman Khanna, welcome to the Daily Blueprint.
Thank you. Sheldon Whitehouse raves about you, so high bar.
We had a fun conversation with him. We're planning to have just as fun of a conversation with you.
I'm looking forward to it.
We are recording this on Tuesday, October 14th. It's officially 2 weeks since the government shut down, since Republicans shut the government down. Talk to us a little bit about what you're hearing from your colleagues about why the fight from Democrats to save healthcare is so important.
Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, healthcare premiums for 24 million Americans will double if we don't do anything. And this fight is about making sure you're not going to pay twice as much in premiums for your family. Now, what is outrageous is that we're not in session. Who does this? I've been in Congress 9 years. We're not voting to pay the troops. They're having to move money around and scramble just to pay the troops. When previous shutdowns have happened, I have been on call, where every 2 hours, even in the middle of the night, you'd be called in to vote on something. Now, why have they shut this Congress down? It's pretty simple. They don't want Adelita Grijalva to be sworn in and have a 218 signature on Massey and my discharge petition that will force a vote on the release of the Epstein files. And so it's shameful that we literally are not doing our jobs because they're so afraid of this vote on the Epstein files.
You know, it's funny, you're here, we're in Washington, D.C., you're here to theoretically negotiate, right, try to get to work, as you just mentioned. Republicans aren't necessarily here. They're not trying to negotiate. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, Hakeem is having all our caucus meeting tonight, 6 p.m. Democrats have been here. We're ready to vote. We're ready to vote on things like paying our troops, paying federal workers. I mean, one of the things we need to do is make this guy, Russ Vought, a household name. He's firing folks. He's firing people like teachers and military bases. Someone was in my office telling me that teachers are not getting paid or they're to educate our troops' kids. I mean, this guy is firing people. He is not paying folks. And Democrats are saying, we're ready to negotiate. We're ready to pass money to be able to pay workers. And by the way, the Republicans could do this tomorrow. They could open government. They're in charge. They've got 51 senators. They've got the House. They've got the presidency. And they're not willing to do it.
You mentioned that guy, Russ Vought. He's the OMB director. But he's more known, or famous for, I should say, Project 2025 and
Right.
authoring that. So this stuff you mentioned, that was in the Project 2025 playbook. And this shutdown is giving him the chance to do that. And Democrats are sounding the alarm.
Yeah, I mean, look, we were honest during the election. But people didn't believe it, and he's really running the government. He's basically implementing Project 2025. And Trump is off there in the Middle East. He's the one, in the meantime, just dismantling government, firing federal workers, not paying federal workers. Their goal is to gut the federal government, the parts of the federal government that help do medical research, the parts of the federal government that help disabled kids in working class neighborhoods, the parts of the government that make sure people have enough food if they're hardworking Americans, the parts of the government that do our air travel. I mean, they want to shrink all of it. That's their ideological goal. And that's what he's doing.
I want to mention, you mentioned you working with Congressman Tom Massey, who's a very conservative Republican,
Yeah.
but you're working in a bipartisan manner to try to get the Epstein files released.
Right.
You mentioned the dynamic right now with the shutdown of Rep-elect Grijalva not being sworn in. That would mean that the Epstein files have to be released. Can you tell us a little bit about why and how you're working with this conservative Republican on this bipartisan issue?
Well, this is not political. I mean, we've met the survivors. These are women who were raped and abused at the age of 14, 15, who were told to go recruit other junior high friends of theirs, high school friends of theirs, knowing that those folks would get raped. And they stood in front of the Capitol and said, we want these files released. Some of them didn't remember the trauma to themselves, and they said they want to read the files so they understood what happened to them. It was so emotional that Marjorie Taylor Greene was there, and emotional. She hugged me. We've seen, people be emotionally impacted. Lauren Boebert is on the petition. Nancy Mace is on the petition. And we have 217 signatures. Now, Alito Grijalva would be number 218. And that would force a vote. And what Speaker Johnson knows is that if there's a vote, 60 to 70 Republicans are going to vote for releasing the files. And he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to do that at the time where we have a shutdown. So he's literally said, let's not have Congress since September 23rd. Who does that? What other employer do you just say, well, we're going to shut it down, don't come?
And you mentioned all of those people that I think a lot of our viewers at home would be surprised maybe that you're working with, right? Congressman Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, these are people that are conservatives. Why is there this pushback from Mike Johnson, from Donald Trump, to not release these Epstein files? It's confusing. Why? Why don't we want them out there?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
That's what people are asking. What is there to hide? Because Donald Trump ran on the release of these files. J.D. Vance ran on the release of these files. Pam Bondi said that there's a client list that people are on. And then suddenly, after they had the federal government review all these files, they said, no, there's nothing to see it. We can't have these files. Now, we know that the files exist because Kash Patel has said that there are 300 megabytes of these files. That means millions of documents. And the victims' lawyers have seen these files. And they said they're FBI interview memorandum of rich and powerful men who have done bad things, covering up Epstein's abuse, and in some cases participating in sex with these women. And so we want this out there. The Democrats are now the party saying of transparency, where it's bipartisan. And unfortunately, Trump has just become part of the system he railed against. He was this outsider. He was going to expose it all. And now he is covering this up.
I want to pivot a little bit. You represent California's Silicon Valley.
Right.
This is a place that has seen a great change because of the tech industry over the past 10, 20 years. It also faces challenges that the rest of the country is facing with affordability. What do you think the economic message should be for Democrats as we're gearing up for the midterms in 2026 when we could potentially take back the House again?
Well, I can answer simply what the Democrats should stand for. We should stand for what I call economic patriotism. That means addressing the economic inequality and divides that are tearing this country apart. That means having our highest priority, the economic success of every family and every community in this country. What does that look like? It means taxing the billionaires in my district. It means childcare at $10 a day. It means having Medicare for all so that we don't have these extraordinary premiums and deductibles. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying insurance is terrible. It means having a trade school in every town so that people, especially in a digital age, are being able to have a job, a career after school if they don't go to college. It means financing the modern factories in places that have been deindustrialized. It means financing modern healthcare jobs and education jobs with university extensionships. We need a Marshall Plan, not for Europe, but for the United States of America, that creates good jobs and lowers the cost of childcare, of healthcare, of housing. This, to me, is what the Democratic vision is. The Republicans say have got 19th century policies for a 21st century economy. I say, I understand modern wealth generation. I represent the place that has produced more wealth than any place in human history. $14 trillion, wow. 5 companies, over $1 trillion in a 50-mile radius. No one can lecture me about what it takes to have economic growth in the modern economy. And I believe the Democrats have a better vision for the economic future and how we're going to make sure every family participates in it than Donald Trump.
Now, you mentioned factories. You, in a previous life, worked at the Department of Commerce under President Obama. You went
Yeah.
on international trade missions, talked about how we can increase U.S. exports. You even wrote a book about supporting domestic manufacturing and how we can keep it competitive. You know, Donald Trump right now is having these trade wars with all of these countries.
Yeah.
We are seeing some of the worst losses of manufacturing jobs across the country. How should Democrats focus on supporting workers, specifically when it comes to trade and the manufacturing industry right now?
Well, Donald Trump has all the rhetoric, but none of the policies. Joe Biden, we had 700,000 manufacturing jobs created. Donald Trump has lost 40,000 jobs. Why? Because he's gotten into trade wars with every country. So the input costs have gone up. He's gotten into a retaliatory war right now with China, where they're restricting the critical rare earth minerals from coming here, hurting our manufacturing, where they're threatening even higher tariffs, hurting our farmers. So what we need to do is actually build the trade schools, finance the modern factories, finance shipbuilding, finance the solar, finance batteries, finance steel, instead of just a trade war. You're trying to protect industry that doesn't exist. We got to build the industry first. And the Democratic Party actually is the party that is going to help build manufacturing. We've got to remember, we're the party that industrialized America. That was FDR. And we can have a vision for how we build modern factories across this country. But recognizing that that's just one component of what we need in a diverse economy. We need also the trades for construction jobs, which aren't going to be automated. We need the healthcare jobs, which are growing. We need education jobs, which this president is cutting, which are a growing sector. And I think that the key for the Democratic Party is to convince this country that we have a better economic vision, both for fairness and for growth, that we understand the modern economy, and Trump is kind of a 1980s guy with 19th century policies. To me, that's something that the average Phillies fan, I go to the Phillies games, can understand. A lot of times we get into all this highfalutin stuff about democracy. We're very important, but we are not connecting with the average person who's, when I think of my politics, I think of how I grew up in Bucks County. I going to the 700 level of the vet, and what people there cared about. And they cared about, how do they support themselves? How do their kids have a better life? How are they going to make sure their communities are economically thriving? That's what we have to hammer home.
Yeah, and I think we want to thank you for coming on here to talk about that, because we do need to make sure we're talking in a normal way to people about things that they care about. And appreciate you doing that here in studio today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much to Congressman Khanna for joining us today. With Election Day in New Jersey, Virginia, and Pennsylvania just weeks away, we're continuing to highlight Democratic candidates for office in our segment, 60 Candidates in 60 Days before the November election. Today, we're shining a spotlight on Lisa Bennett, who is running to represent New Jersey's 9th District in the General Assembly. Lisa's top priority is bringing down the high cost of living in Ocean County, whether it's through tax relief and helping families buy their first home, or by taking on the utility companies and helping seniors stay in their homes. Lisa has a long track record of serving the community as a paralegal and will continue that dedicated advocacy in Trenton. To make calls, knock doors, and volunteer with the Bennett campaign, go to lisabennettforassembly.com. You can find the link in our video description below. Thanks for joining us today for this episode of the Daily Blueprint. We'll be here right with you every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern on the DNC's YouTube page. Until then.